All right, before we get started, let's talk about the Quilt Police.
Good day. I'm your neighborhood Quilt Police Officer, and if you don't do it exactly how I tell you to, you're not doing it right.
These are the ones who knock on your door and cite you for improper seam allowances, fabric violations, or oh my goodness, not pre washing your fabric. But I'm here to tell you that the Quilt Police don't exist. They're just fabric related myths that are designed to steal your quilting joy. So let's kick them out and have some fun as we bust some myths that the Quilt Police want you to believe. Hey friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name's Becca, and in today's video, we're going to bust some of the biggest quilting myths that have been floating around the industry for years. Whether you're a seasoned quilter or just starting out, you've probably heard some quilting advice that just doesn't hold up. Well, today we're setting the record straight. So grab your fabric and a cozy drink and let's dive in.
Rule number 10, quilts are only for the bed and never to be hung on the wall.
The quilt police say quilts are just for bed covers. Well, then I'm doing something very wrong. I've got several quilts that are way too small to fit on a bed, and they're hanging on my walls or laying on a table instead. Quilts can be used for so much more than just beds. You can throw them on the couch, hang them on the wall, or use them for gifts. The sky's the limit when it comes to quilted projects, so get creative. Quilting doesn't always have to be utilitarian. Sometimes it's just about making something beautiful. I've made quilts just to fill a space and brighten up a room, and it's always been so rewarding to see them used in unexpected ways. Like, have you ever made a quilt that you just wanted to hang on your wall because it was the perfect piece for the room? I sure have. Don't be afraid to think outside of the box.
Rule number 9, you have to follow the pattern. None of this newfangled making it up as you go along. I'm talking to you, Becca.
The quilt police say that you have to follow patterns exactly. Do they even know me? I'm usually the first to go off script. Maybe it's my ADD brain or just my rebellious nature, but patterns to me are guides, not laws. Sure, follow them if you want, but if you think there's an easier way to do something, go for it. You can also feel free to introduce other design elements if you want to make it more you. Now, I know I write patterns myself, but let me tell you, when I'm sewing on my own time, I go off script all the time. Most times, I'm really just looking at the illustrations rather than reading every typed out word. Once I feel like I know what's happening, I just start doing the thing.
Rule number 8, every quilt has to have batting in the middle. Otherwise, it's not really a quilt, you're just lazy.
The quilt police say that you need to use batting for every quilt. Nope, not always. I personally use batting in all of my quilts, and I usually opt for a thin bamboo or a thin cotton layer. If the quilt's just going to be the quilt top and the backing, I really would suggest a layer of batting of your choice to give it some body and structure. But if your backing is going to be a bit thicker, think like a flannel or a cuddle or minky, you don't necessarily need batting in the middle. Remember, the more layers you add, the more warmth and weight that the quilt will have. And depending on the climate of the recipient, all of those layers may not be desired. And sometimes a completely different layer in the middle works better. For example, I love using Osnaburg for rag quilts. If you've never tried it, trust me on this one. It's perfect for rag quilts. The fraying effect that it creates is just amazing. Batting doesn't have to be the traditional batting either. I once had a quilt that was gifted to me that wore out, and as it started to fall apart, I was able to discover that inside the batting that they used is actually the same fabric that towels are made of. I think it was terry cloth. This is used in some super old quilts, and it helps give the quilt a great drape and a wonderful weight.
Rule number 7, you can only use one type of fabric. That means no mixing those batiks with that cotton. I see you.
The quilt police say that you can't mix different types of fabrics in a quilt. False. Absolutely False. While I don't work much with flannel, I do love to add minky to the back of some of my quilts. And this myth extends to the type of fabric that you use for your quilt top too. I've heard the quilt police say that you can't mix screen prints or solids with batiks or other hand-dyed fabrics. And trust me, I've definitely done that. It gives such a cool contrast in texture and vibe. Also, don't be afraid to mix polyester thread in there with the cotton fabric. It works just fine. In fact, I've seen beautiful quilts made with a combination of poly and cotton fabrics. Just keep in mind, polyester isn't flame retardant, so keep that in mind for certain projects. The point really is mix it up. Your quilt can have a personality all its own.
Rule number 6. Quilts must be complicated because if you want to win ribbons, that's the only way how.
The quilt police say that quilting has to be complicated to be impressive. Oh boy, do I have thoughts on this one. Sometimes the more intricate a quilt is, the less the recipient will actually want to use it. They'll fold it up and store it in a drawer because they're afraid of ruining this project that took us so long to make. Ask me how I know. By the way, Amber, is that Betty Boop quilt I made you still locked away in your closet? But here's the deal. What really makes us happy is seeing our quilts used. I love gifting quilts that are more patchworky or scrappy because that means the person will actually use it and love it. Of course, it depends on who's receiving it, but you can make a quilt uniquely yours just by the fabric selection. So you don't need to have complicated piecing. Keep it simple and let the beauty of the fabric shine. A great way to let that fabric shine is by doing a very simple patchwork style quilt using large pieces with minimal intricate details. Simple designs can still pack a punch if you choose the fabrics that have a strong visual impact.
Rule number 5. You must quilt all quilts except baby quilts on a long arm, otherwise I will cite you for reckless behavior.
The quilt police say that you need a long arm to quilt big projects, but here's the thing. Long arms are a luxury item, not a necessity. There are plenty of ways that you can still quilt a large project without a long arm. The biggest trick? Keeping that quilt weight up off the edge of your surface. Don't let it drag off the end of the table. Trust me, your shoulders and back will thank you. By the way, shout out to Tracy from the Sewing Channel who has a fantastic tutorial on how she rigs her setup to clip quilts up while she's free motion quilting. Check out the video, the link is in the description for an awesome solution. And when it comes to basting, I hate basting too. All that rolling around on the floor, spare me. I found if I use a table, my back and knees thanked me later. The trick for me is to get the batting up on top of a surface, clip it down with some binder clips, lay the batting on top, and then the quilt top, and then baste it with safety pins starting from the center out. By clipping each layer to the edge of the table with those binder clips, it kept things in place as I added additional layers and eventually pinned everything together. And it let me sit in a chair for a good part of it. And here's the hack. If basting is absolutely not your thing and you can't afford long arming services or just want to quilt it for yourself, talk to someone with a long arm. They have the superpower to baste your entire quilt with a large basting stitch that you can easily pull out later. I've done this a few times for friends and it works so much better than getting the spray on everything or struggling with safety pins.
Rule number 4. You must use the most expensive tools available, otherwise, what are you doing?
The quilt police say that you need expensive tools to make good quilts. They'll tell you that your quilt won't be legally good unless you have top-of-the-line equipment. I once heard a story from a fellow content creator. This person worked on an older machine in their content, and some lovely viewer posted a comment expressing that if they would have just spent money on a better machine, their product would have been better, or something like that. But the message was clear. They weren't a real quilter because they weren't using a new machine. They were using an older machine. Absolutely, positively, 100% false. Let me tell you, I sew on a 1951 Singer 301 that I got for a cool $50 from Facebook Marketplace. This beauty does everything I need to. And honestly, I'm obsessed. My setup is pretty simple. I've got my sewing machine, a spool of thread, a pair of snips, a cutting system, and a pressing system. That cutting system just could be a pair of scissors or a multi-purpose ruler, cutting mat, and rotary cutter. Your pressing station doesn't need to be intricate either. It could just be a surface that can accept heat and an iron. Now, each of these tools has a wide variety of prices, but you can totally start quilting on a budget and work your way up if you want to. Heck, honestly, you don't even need to own a sewing machine. Some techniques, like English paper piecing, let you sew completely by hand. And guess what? All you need is a needle, thread, and fabric. That's why I personally love English paper piecing, or EPP. It is super portable and honestly, a little oddly satisfying. Have I had the fancy tools? Yup. Do I still have some of them? Yeah. Do I enjoy them? Absolutely. But are they required? No. The amount of money you spend on your quilting tools can vary greatly, so don't let your budget restrict you from the joy of being creative.
Rule number 3, everything must be perfect. You must have every point, every seam, everything a quarter of an inch. It has to be perfect.
The quilt police say that quilting must be perfectly precise. They want every seam straight, every corner sharp, and every measurement spot on. But guess what? The truth is, quilting is about creativity, not a perfect seam. Sure, precision is important, but the real beauty of quilting is in the process. And let's be real, it's not always perfect. When I started quilting, I would find myself chatting with my husband, Jason, about things I did right or wrong. Now, he's gotten good at spotting when my points are perfect. Why? Because I taught him how to look at it. And when he points those out, I don't think he's doing it to be mean, but to show me that he knows what he's looking at. Well, maybe except for this one time where he told me my points were so off that I shouldn't hang up the quilt anymore. But in his defense, it was the first quilt that I ever made for a wall, and the points were way off. And I can and have gotten so much better. Sometimes I just think that when people point out their mistakes, it's their way of humbling themselves. If you point out an imperfection, though, someone else will definitely see it, just like Jason did. But if you don't point it out, they might never see it, and they can just appreciate the beauty of what you made. Don't rob them of that. It might not be perfect. You might be the only one to see those imperfections, but that quilt might mean everything to the recipient, imperfections or not. Don't devalue what you labored over for them. Embrace the compliments, not the critique.
Rule number 2, all quilts must have the binding put on by hand. You can't use the machine ever.
The quilt police say you have to hand bind all your quilts. And sure, hand binding is beautiful, but it's not the only option. I've entered quilts that are machine bound and hand bound into shows, and guess what? The ones with machine binding have definitely won awards. I've also used a combination of machine and hand binding to finish a quilt that's going to be used and washed repetitively, and it's holding up beautifully. Binding is all about personal preference. You do what works best for your workflow and your vision for the quilt. Quilting should be fun, not stressful. Personally, I love the look of hand binding when it's done, and I've come to actually really enjoy hand sewing. It's become my do something sewing while watching TV with the husband project. But I have friends, shout out to Ian, the quilt police in this video, who are anti-hand binding and do everything by machine. And guess what? It still looks great. There are tricks to make machine binding look seamless. For example, I talk about using a coordinated thread that matches the binding fabric in my binding tutorial. This can make your stitches virtually disappear. Or you can even just use a fun decorative stitch to tack it down. That's a great way to add a little flair to your project. I've got a full binding tutorial for you linked down below if you want to check it out.
Rule number 1, you must pre-wash all your fabrics, otherwise they're gonna bleed all over the place and it's gonna shrink up like a prune. Ew.
The quilt police say you must always pre-wash your fabric. And if you don't, you need to get ready for shrinkage, bleeding, and who knows what else. They'll be at your door with a ticket in no time flat. But guess what? I'm not worried about it. I don't pre-wash my fabric unless I'm doing something that requires it. In all my years of quilting, I typically have not noticed bleeding unless I'm using some hand-dyed fabric like cherry wood or batiks. Karen Brown over at Just Get It Done Quilts made a video on this very topic a couple years ago. She mentions three big reasons that people pre-wash their fabric: shrinkage, color bleeding, and cleaning. Let's break it down. First, we're going to talk about shrinkage. Karen tested three different quilts to see how much fabric shrinks during the process. Spoiler alert, it shrinks whether you pre-wash it or not. But here's the thing, the pre-washing does reduce shrinkage. For example, in her test, pre-washed fabric shrank less than unwashed fabric. For me, shrinkage isn't a huge concern. It's a little shrinkage, and honestly, it's not going to ruin my quilt, so I don't do it. Color bleeding. Now, this is where things can get tricky. The Quilt Police would love for you to believe that if you don't pre-wash your fabric, you're gonna have something that's gonna look like a tie-dye disaster. But here's the thing, color bleeding isn't usually an issue unless you're working with strong, vibrant dyes. For example, I don't get much bleeding with regular cottons, but with hand-dyed fabrics like batiks, I could definitely see some bleeding. And finally, they talk about cleaning. The Quilt Police will tell you that you must pre-wash your fabric to get rid of all of the chemicals. But here's the thing, if it's a quilt I'm gifting, I'm going to wash it before sending it off to make sure any leftover chemicals are gone. If I'm just quilting it for me, I'll skip it, especially if it's going to hang on the wall. Honestly, the chemicals aren't a major concern for me unless it's a special fabric or I'm giving it as a gift to someone with sensitive skin. So there you have it, friends. 10 quilting myths that you can safely ignore.
Well, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm out of here.
I want to give a special thank you to Ian for playing the Quilt Police in this video. If you haven't checked him out before, I will link his channel in the description box down below. Just remember, quilting is about creativity, expression, and making something you love. Don't let these myths hold you back from making beautiful quilts your way. Let me know in the comments if you've ever fallen for any of these myths. I'd love to hear your experiences. Happy quilting, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
Rule number 10, beds. It's gonna be a great recording. Lots of outtakes, lots of outtakes. You're not doing it right.
Just zoom in on your face. I love that.
Bee-boo, bee-boo, bee-boo. Rule number 3, everything must be perfect. You have to get every single... Rule number 3, everything must be perfect. You must have every corner, every piece, every peak, every what, every who.
All the who sounded who.
I know, right? Exactly. I've heard that off Kilter Crafter. He likes to do it by machine, but no, you have to do it by hand. Rule number 2, you have to hand bind your quilts. I can't even do this. You have to do it. Oh, whatever. We'll do another one. Maybe.
You do another one.
Becca can stop laughing.
Faces afterwards are hilarious.
Rule number 1, you have to pre-wash all your fabric. Otherwise, it's just gonna bleed everywhere. It's gonna shrink up like... No, I was gonna go take that somewhere. I was about to do something real bad. Real bad.